Welcome to the Les Petite Morts live reading event. Now, I am your host, PL McMillan, and I'm here with a wide array of talented authors and editor, and we're here to kind of launch you into the wild, sexy anthology that is Les Petite Morts. So hopefully I said that right. If not, then, well, at least I'm away from the French, you know? And that's what really matters. I'm sorry, French people. Okay, so let's get this party started. If you don't know, which hopefully you've read the description of this event, so you slightly know, but Les Petite Morts is an anthology of dark fairy tales and folklore published by Ghost Orchid Press. It's edited by Evelyn Freeling, and it came out today. Happy book birthday! Huzzah! Also, excuse my voice. I completely ruined it talking too much at Stoker. I think that shows how much of an introvert I am because it only took a weekend to get me to this point. But first up, we're gonna have Evelyn come here and I'm gonna grill her. I'm gonna interrogate her. I have a feather tickler here. Pretend I'm holding one. We're gonna find out all her deep dark secrets. Hi, Evelyn.
Hi.
Are you excited, or did I just make you nervous now because I'm threatening you?
I mean, the threats work for me. That's fine.
Okay. So again, happy birthday for your book. Can you tell us a little bit about this anthology?
Yes. So, Les Petits Morts, my turn to butcher the French. It's like Pam said, it's an anthology of erotic horror retellings, myths and folklore from around the world. I teamed up with Antonia from Ghost Orchid Press. She had published like my very first story, which was an erotic body horror story. So we sort of knew that our tastes and interests aligned, and she came up with a theme, I came up with a title, and it just sort of blossomed into the weird little book creature it is.
And what has been your favorite part of editing this anthology?
So obviously getting to discover new to me authors was really fun. There's a lot of talent in the horror community, and just getting to like read everyone's work was amazing. I've been lucky to like connect with a lot of the writers who submitted. Some of them have become really close friends, so that's been wonderful. I also really loved the journey of like discovering the anthology. I think the first time I had the vision for Les Petits Morts was when I first got some of the invited author stories. I got like Haley and Sonora's stories, which were really like sweet and sexy and just like fun little horror stories. And then on the other end of the spectrum, we got Joe's story, which Joe like writes just depraved shit, and I love it. And so
Feeling added right now, are we, Joe?
do you feel like that's fair to call it depraved?
Sure, why not?
Okay. So I just sort of had like realized like the journey I wanted to take the readers on. And so hunting down those stories in the slush was really fun. We got a lot of submissions like that were like Gothic inspired. And so finding the gems that were like grosser, like Rae's gross 69 story. There's another story from a writer who is not reading tonight, but he's here in the audience, Steve Neal. That was like,
Hi, Steve.
like gross infection kink horror.
Oh.
Yeah. And so it was just really fun to like see it formulate and be a part of that.
Awesome. And last question, what do you think readers will like the most about Les Petits Morts?
I think they'll enjoy that it is unexpected. I think that people, because I don't know if erotic horror is like the most well explored subgenre of horror. So I think a lot of people, when they think of erotic horror, think of like monster fucking and like
Tentacles.
Yeah, which is totally valid. But I really wanted to like see what could be done in erotic horror. And I think a lot of our writers they pushed boundaries there, and I'm really proud of that.
Perfect. Thank you again for letting me interview you. Short little Plim talks here. And again, it's out now, so you could totally buy a copy, but maybe wait until the end because we do have giveaways. We have 3 giveaways, so make sure you stay till the end. But first, we're going to get into our first reading. Now, our first reader, let me get my bios here. Dun, 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 if I can find it. AP Kulski is a Korean American author born in Honolulu, Hawaii. I almost added an extra Lu there. She's the author of the gothic horror Fairest Flesh from Strange House Books and House of Pungsu from Bizarro Pulp magazines, and anthologies Chromophobia from Strange House Books, The Dead Inside from Dark Dispatch, and Not All Monsters from Strange House Books. So welcome, KP.
Hi.
Can you tell us the title of your story and what is it about?
Sensualis Dismemoria, which is totally a bunk Latin phrase that I made up. It's essentially based on the Handless Maiden story. So kind of her adventures, I was really just entranced by the idea that a lot of women in these stories run to the woods for protection. So I wanted to explore what kind of protection the woods could offer.
Hit us with it.
All right, so everyone, please forgive me. I have COVID. I don't have it very bad, so I'm here in isolation in my room, so I may need to take a break, but all right. Sensualis Dismemoria. Wet, slick death desiccates eventually, remembered only in tales and legends, neat, dry bundles, clues that obscure the messiness. Beneath prickly stems of briar, under cover of vine and leaf, shadows gather in the forest with a million warnings. They whisper stories told in the language of dry leaves scraping like insect wings, dark blades chopping inside the manor house, and the pulse of mortal heartbeats. Kisses are for promises you cannot keep, they murmur. But promises are not everything. She doesn't notice or see how red caps sprout from the drops of her life, left behind on the forest floor. A summoning of sorts, a call for things that are fond of hopeless causes, unsavory things like those of us who have watched her for so long. She comes to us now, runs into the arms of leaf and bough. The shadows will cover her. We will covet her. An exquisite thing made of grief. She stumbles. The blood loss has been too great. They don't tell you that the pain of such a cut is the fire after the blade, when the body shrieks incessantly over its suddenly missing parts. Her mind clouds with the clamor of it. We feel all this, soak it up eagerly, like the first taste of a long-awaited meal. Floundering yet determined, she staggers into a clearing. We send whispers through the woods. Trees lift branches. Undergrowth shifts to reveal a pathway, hiding her footsteps as she passes in the gloom. She's trying to keep from slipping into unconsciousness. Despite the scarlet stains and darkness, her gown shimmers in hues of azure and peacock to our eyes. Its bodice still wound tight and high around her breasts. Bare shoulders showcase golden skin, drooping softly in vague relief. If we were fish, we could do nothing but swarm to her lure. Helpless to the hole carved into her spirit, the waves of agony blooming from empty wrists. The steady drip, drip, drip has become the beat she places her footsteps into the deepest parts of the forest. Here, there are no husbands or fathers, no blades that sever, only the spirits of soil and shadows. Long have the woods been the hiding place of women running. Long have we called her to us. Long have we cherished the scent of her determination, the strumming of her willful heart, Hunger rises. It's been so long, and her grief so sharp in the air, a particular feast prepared for us. Ruins of a cottage open before her, its maw still well framed but empty of a door. Toward the cool welcome, she pushes herself into the relief of the shadowy vine. Thick moss coats the walls and floors like a blanket, buffering her with blessed soft green. The back wall of the cottage, having long ago crumbled, opens itself to the wild beyond. All mortal-made things secretly wish for the wild, to welcome the wayward shadow to their fragile parts. Secret wishes carved into tree trunks, breathed in like smoke. She is here. We tremble with the knowledge, her sudden closeness, how she's pierced into the heart of our woods and arrived finally where we've lusted for so long. She spins, sensing something just beyond her vision. We reach out, cautious, afraid she'll disappear into the dreams of our long dormancy. A frightened mortal is the same as a frightened animal. Our touch must be so soft, she believes a trick of her mind. We stroke her mortal flesh, soothing with a multitude of the forest voices. Our invisible fingers run through dark tresses like a stream flowing under the moonlight. To finally touch her, the pleasure overwhelms, and within us we sing with a chorus of crickets. She's everything we've waited for and more. How long have we watched from the tree line, watched this immense spirit trapped in a manor house filled only with loneliness and pain? We've wanted so long to lap at her, bite into the soft parts of her soul. We whisper to each other. She knew to come to us when it finally became too much. Yes, when at last the cruelty of her husband took the final threads of civility within her and took her away, her beautiful hands. Wait, we chide ourselves. She must heal. She must be whole. She must agree, for we do not take unless given. We do not give unless accepted. Trembling, we withdraw, watching as she collapses atop the thick moss of the floor, and finally dreams take her. Time is timeless. We do not know it or need it, do not mark it and track it, but her slumber weighs on us, moist breath escaping lips that have no reason to smile, calling to us like only those suffused with scarlet mortality can do. We stir and stir about her, pulling at us further with desire. We have so many gifts for her. We have so many things to pull from her. Be still, we whisper to one another. Patience, how we are infinite with patience. And I'll stop there.
Amazing, thank you. Elle wanted to call out that pushes herself into the relief of the cool shady vine, fire emoji ×3. Can you tell us a little bit of the inspiration behind it?
Well, as I mentioned, the idea of many fairy tales depict, women going into the forest and looking for shelter. And historically, they've studied that as an idea that there is a place, it's kind of the place outside of what society's requirements are. So I was really tantalized by that particular idea. And, if someone is being brutalized to such an extent that she would have her hands cut off, I would imagine she'd want to kind of get away to the first possible place.
Yeah.
For
I mean,
safety.
yeah, probably. I'm hoping I'm going to say your name right. Andy Thomas says they love the rhythm of it, and Christy says lovely reading.
Oh, good. Thank
So
you.
thank you. Now rest.
Thanks.
Next up, Rae Knowles. Now, Rae, let me find you. Oh, there you are. Rae Knowles is a queer woman whose debut novel, oh no, I'm going to say this wrong, The Stradivarius.
You nailed it.
Heck yeah, released May 2023. Her sapphic horror novel, Merciless Waters, is due out November 23, and her collaboration with April Yates, Lies That Bind, is out early 2024. A number of her short stories have been featured in publications like Dark Matter Inc., Nightmare, Seize the Press, Taco Bell Quarterly, and Nose Touch Press. She's editor-in-chief of Lady Mantis Books, an imprint of Bridget's Gate Press. Recent updates on her work can be found at raeknowles.com or on Twitter @_Rae_Knowles. Welcome.
Thank you so much.
Will you tell us the title of your story and a little about it?
Yeah, so my story is called Giltiny, and Giltiny is the Lithuanian death goddess. And as someone who loves to write about scary ladies and all things feminine rage, when researching this, I just knew I had to write about her and explore her. And part of the mythology around her is that when you meet Giltiny at the end of your life, she'll welcome you with a kiss. And so I thought, well, what if it was a little more?
Well, it looks like everyone's going nuts for a death goddess, so hit us with it.
Okay. Time-worn headstones jut up amongst gnarled tree roots in the yellow wood. 4 days since I was bitten, the fetid, syrupy smell from my leg wafts from twin boreholes around my ankle. My surrounding skin is a shade of indigo, and spidery veins of deep purple wrap my calf, tendrils extending by the hour. So when I see her, clothed in white, billowing skirts, leaning over a grave to pray, my heart is light with near-forgotten hope. I staggered toward the forgotten cemetery, dragging my rotted leg, and managed to eke out, "Good woman," before my sweat turns cold and I collapse to my knees. I clutch soft grasses like a lover's hair, and when I glance upward, she looks down upon me. Dappled light cascades through the tree cover, illuminating her soft features. "Gladys, you look unwell," she says, her tongue wetting her full lips. "How do you—" My vision's obscured by winking spots, the colors of my wound and fresh sweat beads on my brow. I let my gaze drop onto a twisted blade of grass. I must have told her my name. Strong, thin arms roll me to my back. Her ashen hair falls in loose waves and tickles my neck. "Allow me to take a look," she says, crouching between my parted legs and rolling my pant leg up to the knee. Her pale eyes pass over the bite. Shame clenches my abdomen as I brace for her to recoil from the smell, but she only tisks at me, circling a pointed finger above my mottled flesh. "It was a snake, yes," she says. "I can see as much. And 4 days it has taken you to find me." Had I told her this too? I roll through my memory, searching it as a ledger, but I'm distracted by firm pressure on my chest. She hovers over me on palms and knees like a thirsty beast. The scent of rot and death grows stronger, and her fingernails grate my flesh through the fabric of my shirt. My eyes lock on hers, cool colors I can't distinguish, a swirl of mossy green and perhaps a kiss of a lilac flower, but then a glimmer of light refracts a golden hue. I find myself entranced by the patterns of it. Her delicate finger pushes greasy hair from my face, and a warmth from her body, or from within myself, steadies the shiver I'd grown used to. She inhales deeply, and my chest expands with hers, a smile exposing her 2 white teeth. I gain a sense that it's as if you know me. The words fall from my lips as easily and naturally as an apple from a tree, and yet I am a stranger to you. There's a sorrow in her words, or perhaps a longing. A gust of wind pushes her shoulder strap down her arm, and the fabric of her dress tumbles with it, exposing the deep plunge between her breasts. She leans forward, close enough to kiss me, but instead whispers into my mouth, "I wish to know you." The weight of searing pain is lifted, replaced by lust that beats steady as my heart between my thighs. This cannot be. A fever, perhaps, or a strange dream at the precipice of death. She draws my shirt over my head, my pants and undergarments down past my ankles. There's no pain from the mortal wound. In fact, I scarcely remember pain. The throbbing lust is too present. I see nothing but her elusive eyes, the goose skin of her chest, the gentle wave of her hair rolling in the wind. "Do you wish to know me?" I'm stark naked, gazing up at her form. My eyes seek to penetrate the opaque linens draping her delicate frame. I do. Her expression changes, and there's an unsettling quality I cannot place. She hikes up her skirt and my blood rushes. I think she might sit upon me, but instead she steps over my broken nakedness. Her bare feet step lightly through young grasses, and she kneels beside a freshly dug grave. I shrink. Who have you come to mourn? I can think of naught else to say, and I cover myself with my hands, hoping she will not notice the flush of scarlet in my cheeks. Mourn. She doesn't turn, but dips her head into the dirt like the strange cousin of a prayer. Feather-light movement draws my attention to my right shoulder, then my left, and I gasp as 100-legged insects burrow up from the dirt and crawl across my clavicle. Good woman. There's panic in my voice I can't hide, and as I think my horror cannot grow, a rotund beetle lands atop my cheek, its iridescent wings casting many hues, not unlike her eyes. I swat it away with a fury, abandoning my limp shame to hang unprotected in the fading daylight. You do not know me. Her maw is coated in upturned soil, and I think I see a serpentine tongue coil and hide behind her teeth, but it must be the fever. 4 days you have journeyed to find me, and now you have, as my sister has ordained it, and you will know me. As fear thrums my body and I think to run, she stands once more, slips the dress from her slender form. Her body is flawless as marble, unpainted and freshly carved by a master. I've never seen skin so fair, so wholly unblemished. Svelte legs lead my eyes to the curve of her fruits, and my tongue dries, throat closes. Only tasting her will sate my thirst. It's not desire, but a craving I feel. Intense burning, not from my leg, but from the wholeness of my body and soul. I must have her, must possess her. I want nothing but to drown between her slender thighs. And so you shall.
Amazing. You have a chat in a bit of a heated moment here. Colleen says, I hope this is how I die. Shelley, oh my gosh. Evelyn pitching in here with only tasting her will sate my thirst. Chef's finger thing.
I love you all.
Steve Neal says everyone's gonna have to go take a cold shower. Like, do we need a 5-minute break here maybe? Take a quick ice bath. Can you tell us the inspiration a little bit more behind it?
Yeah, so I mean, again, I really just found the mythology fascinating, and I couldn't find a lot about Giltney. And you have to forgive me, my memory is terrible to start with, and I did this research so long ago, so I don't remember the name, but Giltney's sister is the goddess of life who really decides when people die. So, you know, there was some stuff written about how it's not really Giltney's fault when she comes to collect you. So I wanted to sort of nod to that. And there was some stuff about her kind of hanging out in graveyards and eating soil and having a serpentine tongue. And I mean, she just sounds fabulous. I'd love to hang out.
Elle and I had a moment in chat where she said that she would welcome this death goddess with open arms. And I said, why not open legs? And she said, why not both? But thank you so much. And with that, it is time for our first giveaway. Drums, everyone. Now, again, we do have 3 giveaways. Yeah, it was kind of drums. I don't know what that was. The first 2 giveaways will be for an ebook copy of Les Petites Morts, and the last biggest giveaway will actually be a physical copy that Evelyn did all the work for to try to get signatures on it from as many authors as she could find from Stoker. Evelyn, how many was that? How many did you chase down?
You know what? I failed Jessica. I didn't get Jessica's. I'm sorry, but I'd have to count. I got Haley's and Sonora's and Christie's and Rae's, and I also got Sarah's and Steve, and I got Gemma Amore to sign her drawing that she did for Christie's story.
And you're gonna sign it as editor, right?
Yes, I can absolutely do that. Yeah.
Perfect. So yes, that will be the last giveaway at the end of the night. So make sure you stay until the end. But I'm going to go and roll my erotica wheel here, which is just my normal wheel. Drums in chat, people, I won't do it. Elle, yep, thank you. That's all I needed. And our first winner is Chase O'Neill. If I said your last name right, Chase O'Neill, are you here? Let's see, Chase. Maybe Chase is taking the cold shower. Chase, give us a sign or I'm rolling the erotica wheel again. Let's see. Oh, I see you like in the group. Chase has passed away after Rae's reading. Rae, what have you done?
Mm.
Okay, well, I see Chase here. So yeah, maybe Chase is just like fainted. So we'll hit our next reader then.
Sure.
Dun, 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 dun. And that's Kelsey Christine McConnell. Kelsey has a bachelor's degree in television and film production from SDSU and an MFA in musical theater writing from NYU. Furiously writing at night, she spends her days working as an assistant editor for the horror site The Lineup. She gets all of her best ideas from her sleep paralysis demon. Good job, demon. Kelsey, welcome.
Thank you.
Can you tell us the title and a little bit about your story?
Yes, my story is called A Greed of Flesh, and my story is based on Selkie folklore, which is seal women from Celtic mythology, originally derived from back in the day when Irish women were forced into marriage. I sort of turned it around into the trials of modern dating and the violence that comes from that.
Amazing. Okay, let's hear this sexy story.
Neve emerges that first night as the sun kisses the ocean's horizon. She's as naked as the desire which has driven her to shore, her shed pelt trailing behind her in the waves. Her long black hair clings to salty, goose-bumped skin. Where once whiskers had been, her cheeks are peppered with light freckles. The Celtic Sea is frigid without the insulation she's so accustomed to, but she imagines her vulnerable new flesh will find warmth soon enough. Her kin have made this journey for centuries, shifting through churning waters to find their footing on sand, following the pull of human hunger. Selkies are drawn to any manner of craving, compelled to soothe and sate. Some seek the ache of loneliness. Others follow the heat of rage, the sourness of grief, the buzz of ambition. Neve has always been captivated by wanting in its purest form. She's become addicted to the taste of passion on her tongue, the heady scent of lust. The sand is rough and pebbled beneath her feet, but the pain does nothing to quell the liquid warmth pooling low in her belly. She pads up to the green, claws through solid dirt and coarse grass to bury her sealskin deep, to keep it safe, protected. She rolls a jagged rock over her hidden treasure, shuddering in wicked anticipatory pleasure. Salt water dries and itching patches across her skin as she starts up over the rolling hills. At the highest point, she peers down at the cottages dotting the landscape. There are dozens of humans putting around in their homes. She can feel them, but none smell so good as the man tucked inside the stone-sided cottage with the little blue door. Neve always feels guilty when she makes her journey to shore. Greedy, but she understands why succubi mount their prey, why sirens sing sailors to sea. Her kin love coaxing smiles from those who have longed for company, for laughter in a listening ear. But Neve thinks nothing is so wonderful as being that which someone longs for. And if no man on land can understand her soul, then they can at least embrace her body with frivolous fascination. There's an aroma to the insatiable, smoky like danger, sweaty like a horse run ragged around a track, spicy like a burn you can't resist. Neve presses her flushed cheek to the door, inhaling deep. She knocks twice, listening to bare feet shuffling across wooden floors. The man who answers is tall, broad-shouldered, muscled all over. He's got a mop of messy, sandy blonde hair and a full beard to match. His blue eyes are warm, but not with kindness. They simmer with interest, sparkle with intent as he rakes his gaze from her pale breasts to the kiss of her rounded thighs. His mouth is pink, the plush of his bottom lip made to fit between her teeth. I've heard about you. His voice is a measured, unmarked baritone, American. It dips lower as he corrects himself. Your kind. Neve likes being talked about, even if it's in broad strokes. She likes when men have expectations, likes to exceed them. Her cheeks dimple as she spares a smile. Can I come inside? He pulls the door open wider to let her slip through, but he doesn't move aside. She brushes against him as she passes, flesh singing as it drags against the soft cotton of his Henley. He follows a half step behind her, as addicted to her softness as she is to his virility. They move like two magnets meant to meet. Magnets you could only pry apart with a crowbar and the will of the darker gods. I'm Jonah, he murmurs. cupping a broad, calloused hand over the swell of her hip, if it matters. It's nice to be friendly. She peels his hand off her skin just to tug him forward, press him down on the couch. She throws a leg over his lap, settles in against his hips. Neve. Neve, he whispers, lips brushing dry against the sensitive curve of her throat. His words are a prayer, a worship that sinks through the bones. Beautiful. Her stomach flutters with a wild fever, like a spoonful of sunshine rolling hot down her throat. She leans in close, tracing the seam of Jonah's lips with the point of her clever tongue. He grins into a biting kiss, arching and twisting to help her skim his shirt over his head. Her nails drag down his chest to the bulge at his buckle, leaving 10 puckering pink lines in their wake. Jonah rolls them over, Neve's back bouncing against the ratty, overstuffed cushions. He paints wet, sucking kisses over her collar, rolls a peaked nipple between his teeth, dips and rims his tongue at her navel, a shadow of what's to come.
Ooh, can you tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Yes, I think, sorry, I get distracted by the questions in the chat.
I'll ask them after, don't worry.
Yes, I think very much, as I said, taking the turn from the forced marriage to how violence makes itself present in today's romantic relationship. I think there's very much an unwillingness to have commitment, which breeds this emotional violence, which can escalate. I think we've very much gotten into this point in relationships where you want someone so badly, but you refuse to only be theirs, which, you know, if it works for you, it works for you, but you have to be on the same page. And I think there's that jealousy that's not necessarily from romantic interest, but of this covetous possession. And that's sort of where this idea came from, that unwillingness to give yourself equally to someone that you're taking from.
And yes, we do have a question from Sonora, of all people. Did you want to ask it, Sonora?
Sure. I mean, I was asking it kind of cheekily, but I am curious as well. Did you intentionally name Jonah after someone famously swallowed by a sea creature?
I wish that I did. So from now on, I will pretend that it was fully intentional and I am that clever.
I'll corroborate your story. I'll be like, yep, she told me that in the exclusive party.
Now I think, you know, people are needing another cold shower because we have oh lords in chat. People loving the line, the kiss of her rounded thighs. So good, we're keeping the heat up. That's important. And so we're following up with Joe Koch. I'm always going to hesitate before your last name, Joe. Like, doesn't matter how many times I say it, I'm always going to be like,
Just jump in.
So Joe Koch, where is your bio? You're right there. Writes literary horror and surrealist trash. Their books include The Wingspan of Severed Hands, Convulsive, and The Couvade. Okay, which received a Shirley Jackson Award nomination in 2019. His short fiction appears in publications such as Visterion, Southwest Review, Children of the New Flesh, and The Queer Book of Saints. You can find Joe online at horrorsong.blog and on Twitter at horrorsong. Can you tell us the title of your story? And there's a kitty on screen with ST over here, a little cow kitten. Can you tell us the title of your story and a little what it is about?
Yeah, my story is called Cry Handsome. And I decided to do a little twist on the Bluebeard story, which is typically a story about a guy with a lot of wives and, you know, the bloody chamber with all of the dead women in it. But I feel like we're really missing out on gay slashers in horror. So I decided to do a male on male Bluebeard kind of story. With respect to folkloric forms where the tale wanders around a lot and becomes almost like a labyrinth. So there's also some references to minotaurs and a million things, basically. So I'll read you a little bit from kind of the middle of the story. I'll do my best.
You always do great, Joe. You always do great.
Thanks. Ahead, the alcove tunnel opens into a large cave system. Lucian rises, coated in clay, turd in the subterranean temple. The smell of mud is upon him, the smell of the Minotaur. Curved as if some enormous worm bored through the stone, walls tinged by a blue glow. The corridors stretch endlessly beneath Lucian's shoeless feet. Enormous, the high-ceilinged caverns and complexity of an unseen map defy his efforts to continue on a smooth central path. New offshoots branch open into repetitive channels of glowing stone as Lucian walks. Every intersection forces an uninformed choice. As his clothing dries, the fabric grows stiff with mud. Maybe Lucian Blue's darkest secret will turn out to be that he is a hybrid clay vessel, a pottery fetish struggling to become flesh, or a man of flesh mutating into stone. Either way, an object unlike a man, easily broken. There's no end to the endless passageways. Helpless anger mounts at the absurd plight. I am the serial killer and not the victim, Dan thinks as he blinks tears from his eyes. Then he immediately thinks, my name isn't Dan, but Dan is short for dangerous, and yes, Lucian is that. Whatever lair or bowel or sphincter he's entered into here proves he must be vile and threatening. Yes, he must be a twisted and horrific creature if he is fit to inhabit this sudden infinite hell. Below ground, he's revealed as a monster hiding in mud form, a mere effigy. Above, he's a wolf in handsome clothing, crying and howling for dangerous love. The yearning obsesses despite the risk, squirming white flesh like larvae of giant worms in his storage unit, white laser illumination shooting glass from the black slit of a stranger's throat where blood should pour. Lucian hears footsteps, odd footsteps, clomp, clomp, clomping through the corridor like hooves coming near, cloven echoes of a gargantuan beast. A shadow seals the passageway, a question Lucian hadn't considered before. In this blue illuminated cave system, what is the source of light? The horns of a shadow worry at his resolve. Lucian moves forward, ready to kill for love. It's what men do, after all. But why not be a little bit original and opt out for once? He's never gotten into a fight with somebody he didn't want to fuck in his whole life. It's because we're not talking about that, Dan says. The voice behind Lucian sounds reasonable enough. Yet the echo of enormous steps pounds through the hall like cannon fire. War, vendetta, jealousy, honor, all a different kind of violence. What you and me are talking about is something more pure. The echoing corridor opens into a wide arena. A concave pit drops down below the path. Two animals prowl inside the depths, circling one another in a fishbowl of blue stone. In the center, a black bull rears up on minuscule hind legs, lifting its massive chest and horns as it hops in a circle, balancing its excessive weight. By some trick of the light, it casts the shadow that tracks Lucian. The pounding echoes of pursuit come from its tiny feet. The other beast in the pit strafes to stay face to face with the bull. Thus it continually circles. Lucian's aware of it by movement. It resists visibility. The color, if there is one, doesn't make sense. It's like someone tried to scribble it out and gave up erasing in careless frustration. Lucian can't tell if it has fur or scales or horns. He's not sure he perceives it with his eyes. Somehow he recognizes its presence and knows it moves in a dance of unition and opposition to the bouncing bull. The strafing thing and the performative black bull create a hostile frolic in the cavernous pit. The bull's giant phallus grows. It rises like a turgid knife in black silhouette, preparing to strike. The imperceptible beast quivers in and out of corporeality, like a willing idea of sacrifice. Lucian weeps in spite of himself at the plight of the animals below and calls out for Jeff. His voice breaks, echoes without answer. In the labyrinth of hidden caves, Lucian is lost and alone with the murderer who says, "Cry handsome or cry wolf, my darling, someone has to be gored."
That's amazing. That last line though. People in chat, Joe's prose is on another level, and I love it. I'm loving how twisty this is. Elle says, stiff with mud. Is that what the kids call it these days? Will you tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Aside from just the straight up Bluebeard myth, a lot of giallo films, kind of mix up sex and murder a lot. And I was thinking a lot visually about films like Inferno, which, it really makes no sense at all logically, but there's a visual language. And I actually come from kind of a visual arts background, so that informs my writing.
Awesome. Okay, and with that, we have our second giveaway, drums in chat, as I spin my sexy wheel, which again is just the regular wheel. But I did Google like erotica wheel, but I shouldn't have done that. That's all I'm saying. Okay, running it. And we have Marina. Oh wait, this is Nina. Nina, Nina, are you in chat? Obviously. Hello. I would have messed up your last name anyways. Yay, congrats on winning another e-copy. Huzzah. Wonderful. Thank you. Evie will she's already hit you up. She's already way ahead of me. And our next reader is Jessica Peter, not to be confused with Jessica Peters, who is not
Totally
the same
different.
person. But Jessica Peter loves bad puns, craft beer, street art, creepy things, and everything to do with books. Her writing tends towards the dark and the absurd and is rooted in feminism and the intersectionality of the real world. She's a registered social worker who spends her days in academia conducting research to improve population health in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. She stewards a little free library, loves veggie gardening and bread baking, and once held a skunk. You can find her on Twitter at JessicaPeter1 or at jessicapeter.net. Hello.
Hello.
Was the skunk soft?
No, they're bristly. The fur
Oh.
is not soft. But
Did
it
it
was a
stink
really
you?
no, it was a distinct one.
Okay.
It was really chubby and it was at a wildlife. One of the ones where they bring them back up to health. Preserve? No. But you get to touch it.
Awesome. That's super
Yes.
cute though, except for the fact that it wasn't soft because I would have imagined
No.
it so.
Wildlife rescue. Thank you. Rescue.
The rescue, yes. Can you tell us the title and a little bit about your story?
Yes. This is called There Once Was a Sparkling City Upon the Sea. It is a Breton myth, as in Brittany in France, one of the 6 Celtic nations. I really wanted to do a sunken city myth. You won't hit that in this part of the reading, but it is one of those ones with haunting bells that you might hear alongside the ocean. And Brittany's one of my favorite places I've ever been in the world. So
Awesome. Hit us with it.
all right. The towers of Kerry sparkled in the moonlight, black seas surrounding them glittering like a second starscape. Princess Dahoot gazed out the window of the keep, ignoring the riotous festivities of the masked revelers below her. She couldn't handle another night. Jolly laughter spun her head to the other side of the dais. Her father held court with his closest advisors, his mouth stained dark with wine, that chained key winking at his thick neck. Dahoot's lips curled in disgust. She imagined dashing over and tearing the key off him, ignoring the screams, unlocking the dams that held the waters back, drowning them all. She wouldn't do it, of course. As much as her father and his people deserved it, the nightly merrymaking also included the people from the fields and the farms. The peasants were, mostly, innocent. Despite everything, at least she had pleasure. Dahout finally looked out over the crowd at the colorful clothes and the rough fabric masks and tried to guess which were her father's courtiers and which were the simple peasants that had been ground under the boot of Carey's for the last century. If she had to take someone, she'd prefer to take one of her father's favorites. A young, virile man stood still amongst the crowd, mouth slightly parted as he gazed on Dahout, all thick muscles and sandy hair. She tried to picture what he saw. The beauty, of course. Porcelain skin, emerald eyes, pink lips, and the thick mahogany hair bound up under her diadem that so many poets and songwriters had bored her with over the years. But something in his broad stance reminded her of another, of a different time, a different person. Grief sung in her veins as the thought of his strong body sent a wave of liquid heat to her belly. She was going to turn away, really she was. But as soon as he lifted one open hand to her in invitation, she folded. He'd be the one tonight. Unfortunately, he wasn't one of her fathers. He was too tan, too healthy, too strong. She suspected he worked in the fields. He gave a crooked smile and her breath caught. She walked to him like a marionette on a string drawn by her own desire. Hadn't he heard about what happened to Princess Dahout's lovers? She weaved through the crowd, through the spinning colors and the stench of stale wine and old sweat, not letting the guilt overtake her. He looked even more stunning close up, bright blue eyes gleaming in his ruddy face. He started. She stilled his speech with a finger on his firm mouth, then trailed that same finger down the hard line of his jaw. Despite her own height, he stood taller. But she didn't want to know his name. All caring ended in destruction and heartbreak. Instead, she pulled the silk mask out of her pocket and held it out, even though the sight of it caused disgust to course through her. This wicked scrap of cloth held her as captive as any prison bars. Dahout fought to turn away, fought to ignore the feelings coursing through her, but she was rooted in place. The desire blazing in her blood betrayed her. She wanted this, wanted him. Still, the man had a choice. He had to be the one to choose. One part of her wished he would turn, leave this place, forget her. The man snatched up the mask and put it on. Done then. After only a second of mourning, Dahout laid both of her hands on the chest of this flesh and blood man. The heat from his body radiated from under his linen shirt, and she luxuriated in the touch as her insides turned to slush. They didn't get somewhere private, they'd show far too much amongst the crowd. The man grinned as if he knew exactly what she was thinking. He lifted one of her hands and kissed it, and then slid his mouth down one finger, his tongue softly following the line. Dahout saw stars and had to step back, but only long enough to grab his arm and tow him to the nearest antechamber. The door had barely swung shut when the man fell in Dahout, hungry kisses down her neck, his stubble lightly scratching the column of her throat as she tilted her head back to the dimness of the room. The din of the crowd thundered just outside, but it made Dahout's need even more desperate. She slid into a sitting position on the table behind her and drew the farmhand's strong frame toward her, then kissed him deeply, running her fingers through his hair as their tongues tangled. "Don't make me wait any longer," she whispered into his mouth. She felt rather than saw his grin as he fumbled with her corset. Dahout pushed his hands away and directed them under her voluminous skirts where his finger found the opening of her undergarments, and pushed a finger inside her. He groaned at her wetness. "Ah, God, you're so ready," he whispered, then pushed a second finger in. Dahout leaned back against the wall and watched. "I need you inside me now," she panted, a flush burning her cheeks. For the first time, her farmhand looked uncertain. Anyone could walk in. Let them. His face broke into an embarrassed grin, and he dropped his breeches, a cock of magnificent girth springing forth. He raised her skirts fully and toyed at the edges of her slit, making her moan in blessed agony. "Give it to me." He pushed all the way, almost too big, even after so many nights with so many men. His cock stretched her to the limit. The slight burn made her grip his body with her legs, almost at her completion after his hands had been so experienced moments before. She came, stars exploding behind her eyes as he pounded her. She let the slick weight of him inside her take away until nothing but the feeling and the right now remained, even as the sounds of reveille continued all around them. He whispered in her ear, "My name is Erwan." "Erwan," she whispered back, guilt on her lips. His face rippled with pleasure behind the black mask that even now agonized her. He pumped his seat into her, then looked up, startled as he realized he'd spilled inside royalty. "It's fine," she said. "It won't matter." It never did. Not for her. She sighed. Knowing his name was like holding a piece of his soul. It would only make the loss hurt more. She'd avoided names since she'd lost the one person that ever mattered to her. And of course, since the curse. Despite the glow of completion, dread trickled her heart. If only this time morning wouldn't come. Still, she adjusted her skirts and then offered Erwan his hand. He lifted her off the table and kissed her chastely as if they were courting. "Will you spend the night in my chambers?" she said. His hungry gaze answered. He gathered her in his arms, kissing her neck, not even trying to take the mask off.
Well, I'm sorry, Jessica, you have to go to jail because Nina said she's actually dead from this. That's it. I am deceased, she says. So the police are on their way. They're
Yeah,
going to
sorry.
jail.
Really porny, this segment, but
Elle says, who says Canadians are polite? Elle, we can be polite and erotic. Okay. Christy says Jessica skipping ahead to the spicy parts here. Alyssa says BRB, taking a cold shower. So why don't you tell us a bit about the inspiration?
Yeah. So Dahoot is the villain of the Carrie Sunken City story. And then I was kind of thinking like, oh, you know, how folklore as well as real history is always like retold by the people in charge. So I was thinking, you know, rather than being a witch that's just in it for her own good type thing that you hear in the stories, maybe she's more, you know, she's locked in this thing herself too. And the mask, we'll have more. The story also gets gory in the next page.
Ooh, so you stop short of the gore.
Yeah, I had to hit one or the other in terms of reading length.
No, that's fair. Okay, our next reader is S.T. Gibson, who is a literary agent, author, and village wise woman in training. A graduate of the creative writing program at the University of North Carolina at Asheville and the theological studies program at Princeton Seminary, she currently lives in Boston with her partner, Spoiled Persian Cat, and Vintage Blazer Collection. She's represented by Tara Gilbert of the Jennifer D. Chiera Literary Agency. Hello and welcome.
Hi, thank you so much for having me, and thank you for sharing all this wonderful writing with me. I feel so spoiled tonight. Everyone is so amazing.
I know, everyone's been acing it. Well, and you're up next. Can you tell us the title and a little bit about your story?
Yes, so this story is called Vicious Fruit. It's a reimagining, very loose reimagining, as I want to do, of the Welsh myth of Pwyll, Prince of Dyfed, I believe is how you say it. I have Welsh ancestry, but I don't speak Welsh, so if you know, now you know. So I've always loved this story since I was a little girl, and it is about a fairy king who switches bodies using an enchantment with a human prince. And the terms of this arrangement is that the human prince is not to lay a hand on in any erotic way the fairy king's wife. And I remember reading this story in my teens and thinking, but what if they did? So that's what I wrote.
Unless ...
Right, unless we made some bad choices and then, you know, saw what happened. So we are picking up in the middle of some of those choices happening.
Beautiful. Let's hear it.
Okay, awesome. On the third night, when Schifra came to bed wearing nothing but a shift sheer as a dragonfly's wing, Bryn felt his resolve weaken. "You've been so cold to me of late," she said, wrapping herself around him like a snake. "Don't you want me, sweet prince?" "It isn't that I don't want you," Bryn began, then registered what she had called him. Prince. He reared back, looking her in the face with a startled expression. The fairy woman just laughed. You think I don't know my husband's tricks, his taste for games? I've seen through the glamour he laid over you since the moment you arrived in my bed, and I've wanted you ever since. The world tilted on its axis and then realigned with scintillating clarity. Despite every ounce of his better judgment, Bryn shifted closer to the woman in his bed. She smelled like rainwater dripping over moss with an undercurrent of freshly turned earth. Your husband would be beside himself to hear you say such things, my lady. My husband isn't here, she said, sliding her arms around his neck. It's only you and I. And who's going to tell him if anything transpires between us? Bryn knew he should let her go, but she was warm beneath his hands, and when she nuzzled her nose into the crook of his neck, lightning coursed down his spine. What could be so wrong about a husband lying with his wife, after all, Shifra muttered. An honorable man wouldn't touch you, he said, his breath hot in her mouth. But I am not an honorable man. When he kissed her, all the promises he had made dissolved like sugar under his tongue. The shift seemed to evaporate in his fingers. One moment it was bunched up in his grasp, and then the next his hands were exploring the curving lines of her body. Take what's yours by right, dear husband, she teased. She was a sin worth savoring, and Bryn forced himself to go slowly, to memorize the moment. Bryn palmed one of her breasts, drawing her closer for another kiss. Her skin was unearthly hot beneath his touch, like she was a serpent that had been basking in the sun for hours. Her teeth flashed when she smiled at him, each tooth slightly pointed. Shifra dug her nails into his back when he entered her, hard enough that he hissed in pain. She only laughed, urging him on with a hot kiss at the base of his throat. Bryn's head spun as he clutched her narrow hips closer, pressing his body down on top of hers. She was a revelation in flesh, spread out underneath him in exquisite, naked glory. A human woman might have flushed or shined with sweat, but Shifra was as composed as a statue as she rocked her hips against his, not a hair out of place, not a blemish on her viridescent skin. Bryn felt feverish, like the woman was a sickness he couldn't sweat out of his system. All at once, the atmosphere in the room shifted. The close, cloying heat their bodies had produced gave way to a sudden chill, and Bryn felt cool air ghost across the back of his thighs. There was a new scent in the air now, like honeysuckle gone rotten, and moments later, there was a voice as well. In the end, you lasted 3 nights. I can't say I'm impressed. Bryn froze. He would know that voice anywhere. Bryn tried to crane his neck to face Teague, but Shifra caught his face in her talons with unearthly strength and wrenched his mouth back for a kiss. She hooked her ankles behind him and held him fast, cementing their bodies together. Shifra kept swirling her hips in little circles, making it difficult to think straight, to focus on anything except this long-awaited consummation. My wife will have her satisfaction, I guarantee you that, Teague said. He sat down on the edge of the bed, reaching out to sweep a sweaty curl out of Bryn's face. Bryn froze, as transfixed by the other man as a bear trained to dance on command. No need to stop on my account. I didn't mean to, Bryn began. Of course you didn't, Teague said, and kissed Bryn so sweetly that it felt like a mockery. Bryn stiffened, and for a moment he imagined himself shoving Teague away. But then the fairy king worked his mouth open and slid his tongue so wet and hot across Bryn's, and all rational thought dissolved. On your back, Teague said. Show me how well you bed my wife, little prince. And that's that.
Oh, damn. Everyone's like breaking up over the little prince line. But yeah, some comments. But I'm not an honorable man. And then the bass dropped. People are melting over that line, screaming, crying. Christine Wolfram is a little insulted that you're leaving us hanging there, but why don't you tell us a little bit about your inspiration?
Totally. I would not leave you hanging, but the whole scene is like 5 pages long. So if you want to, you can read it, and it just gets more entangled from there. Yeah, everyone's nodding. Yeah, so I grew up reading a lot of Scot-Irish and Welsh mythology, and my family is Scot-Irish and Welsh, as well as British, UK English. And I was just fascinated by this story ever since I was little. And I love a really loose retelling. And I liked also being able to interweave a couple of references to Scottish and Irish mythology into this story, because a lot of times those fairy stories kind of intermingle in a lot of different ways. So yeah, it was really fun to write and really lovely. And I also got to write the arranged marriage trope, which comes in later, which is one of my favorite ones. And I hadn't done it yet. So this was baby's first arranged marriage trope. And I really loved being able to write it. So thank you so much for featuring the story.
Yeah, of course. And our last reader is Sonora Taylor, who is an award-winning author of several books and short stories. Her books include Seeing Things, Little Paranoia Stories, Without Condition, The Crow's Gift and Other Tales, and Wither and Other Tales. She also co-edited Diet Riot, a Fatter Punk anthology with Nickel Bell. Her short stories have been published by Rooster Republic Press, Candisha Press, Camden Park Press, Burial Day Press, the one word you'd think I couldn't mess up, but Cemetery Gates Media, Tales to Terrify, Sirens Calls Publications, Ghost Orchid Press, and others. Ooh, that was a mouthful. Welcome. Oh, I shouldn't say that's a mouthful in this event. Oopsie.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm just, oopsie, just leading into things here. Can you tell us the title of your story and a little about what it is about?
Yes, so my story is called Snow White and the Seven Sins. So it's a retelling of Sleeping Beauty. No, I'm kidding. It's based on Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. I'll be honest, the title came to me before the story. But I am going to unfortunately not be reading the sex scene from it. So I guess this can be your cool down period, everybody. But I am reading from the climax though, so it is a retelling in the sense you still have Snow White, who in here is named Bianca. That's happened in a few retellings I've read, and you still have the stepmother, the father, and in this one there's a bigger role played by the huntsman's son, whose name is Tristan. And more of the conflict between Bianca and her stepmother Lillian is based on religious differences, as well as like place in the palace because of, you know, children being born and the monarchy. I mention all that because I'm starting in the middle. As I mentioned, you know, it's getting close to like the more actiony part.
You mean it's getting close to the money shot?
It is about 2 scenes before the money shot. People who've read some of my erotic stories know I tend to be the one who does build up, and then end with a literal bang. So that's why I'm not reading the sex scene, because it's the end. So spoiler alert. But I will go ahead and start reading, and then yeah, happy to answer any questions afterward.
Thank you.
But real quick though, I want to show off this cool bookmark that I picked for
it's
it.
beautiful.
Yeah, it's from Stranger Dream. So all right. Sorry. Snow fell gently as Bianca sped into the woods. She turned towards the huntsman's cottage, then stopped. The huntsman served her father and Lillian. He may tell them she was there. She changed course, running deep into the woods and hoping that Tristan was out for a winter's hunt. She slowed her pace, then heard more footsteps in the distance. Her heartbeat quickened. He was here. Bianca began to walk in that direction. Princess! Bianca froze again. It wasn't Tristan, but one of the guards. Someone must have seen her run. She turned again and sped down another path, praying the guard hadn't seen her. Princess! Another guard, another call. Her father must have sent many of them. Bianca swallowed and wondered where to go. She couldn't go back to the palace, not without speaking to Tristan first. Bianca went deeper into the woods, running without direction and hoping to outpace anyone looking for her. Snow White? Bianca skidded to a halt. The voice was deeper than the one she remembered, but only one person ever called her that. She turned. Tristan stood between 2 trees, bow and arrow in hand. He had fully grown into a man. His shoulders were more broad, his step more confident, and his smile much warmer. Tristan set his bow on the ground and walked towards her. It's been so long since I've seen you, he said. Bianca silenced him with a kiss, then pulled back, surprised at her boldness. Tristan looked shocked, but not repulsed. Bianca leaned forward again, and this time Tristan met her kiss, responding once, twice, repeatedly in a rhythm Bianca never wanted to stop. Still, she pulled back just enough to end the kiss. It wasn't my choice, she said. Father wanted me to stay in the castle, to learn the graces of a queen, and to meet suitors. Bianca felt Tristan's body tense. She continued, but I didn't want any of them. I wanted you. I always have, Tristan. She placed her hands on his waist and pulled him closer. My father and stepmother want me to act like a queen. A queen should decide where she wants to be and who she wants to be with. I want to be with you, here in the woods or wherever you go. That is, if you want me. Of course I want you. Tristan pulled Bianca close. She shivered with pleasure as he kissed her neck. I've missed you so much. Once Father heard me call snow in my sleep and asked why I dreamed about winter. Bianca laughed, then sighed as Tristan lifted her hand and kissed her knuckles. But now I have my own cottage, he said in a low voice, where he won't hear me crying out your name. Take me there. Bianca! Tristan pulled from her and Bianca gasped. Her father's voice rang out from far away, but she knew he'd get closer soon enough. Get out of here, Bianca whispered. Not without you, Tristan insisted. Meet me in the snowless grove later. He doesn't know that place. Go, please. Tristan kissed her forehead, then turned and sped away. Bianca spun in the other direction, moving quickly through the forest. A familiar clearing appeared in front of her. Bianca picked up her speed. Bianca made it to the grove, then skidded to a stop. The queen stood before her. Bianca, she stated. Bianca stood speechless. Lillian kept her cold glare. Your father may not watch you, Lillian said, but I do. Lillian lifted her hand, which held an apple. Bianca knit her brow in confusion. I know you've bewitched this place, Lillian continued. I didn't. You summoned hell beneath our feet so you could draw your power from it. Lillian produced a knife and Bianca gasped. Please, Bianca cried. I have no such power. You don't, but hell does. Lillian brought the knife to the apple and began to peel it. Hell sent serpents to tempt man in the garden, and when man proved too wise for the serpent's trick, hell tempted the woman, knowing her to be a faithful ally. 2 strands of apple peel fell to the ground, then darted towards Bianca like snakes. She screamed and turned to run, but it was too late. The peels leapt through the air, wrapped around her wrists, and yanked her to the ground. You accuse me of witchcraft when you do this? Bianca cried. Craft in the service of God is no sin. Lillian stepped toward Bianca as she sliced the apple in half. Look at the seeds. Bianca looked. There were 5 seeds, nothing more. Look at the shape, Lillian added. It's a star. It's the sign of the devil. Lillian threw 1/2 of the apple to the ground, then knelt over Bianca. Please don't kill me, Bianca pleaded as tears pricked her eyes. I'll never come back here, but you belong here. Lillian waved the apple over Bianca in the familiar sign of the cross. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Ghost, let me go. I send you beneath this ground, please, so that this forest and this family can be sacred once again. Lillian shoved the apple into Bianca's mouth. Before she could spit it out, she fell through the ground, the light above snuffed out by a curtain of earth.
Amazing. I will say there are now people writing Lillian and Bianca fanfic in their minds. It may be Rae. A lot of people loving the line, why he dreams about winter. Elle calls you out for pretending this excerpt had 0% sexy in it. And people definitely cheering on Bianca to be bold. Now, can you tell us a little bit more about the inspiration behind this piece?
Yes, so I was definitely influenced by other retellings of Snow White, like I mentioned earlier, especially with Lillian and Bianca's relationship. I was very influenced by a movie I used to see on like TNT all the time called Snow White Tale of Terror, which featured Sigourney Weaver as the Wicked Queen. It was really good.
I haven't seen that.
Yeah, and I was also a little influenced by a book by Gregory Maguire called Mirror Mirror. Gregory Maguire's most famous work is probably Wicked, The Life and Times of the Wicked Witch of the West. And this was a retelling of Snow White, and admittedly Hat Tip, he used the name Bianca in that story, but instead of a wicked queen, it was Lucretia Borgia staying at their house and causing trouble because her brother Cesare was into Bianca. So I would recommend both those pieces of Snow White media. And as you heard in this scene, I was also influenced by the parallels to the Garden of Eden story.
Beautiful. Okay, that wraps up the readings for this event, which means we're on to the big giveaway, which again is the signed copy of Les Petite Morts. So everyone hit me with those drums. I can always like trust in you to hit me with those. Okay, I'm gonna spin my delicious wheel here.
Delicious.
And well, you know, I'm trying to make it sound sexy, but it's really just multicolored and it looks like it's made for classrooms, but I try my best. Pauline Chow. Pauline, are you here, Pauline Chow?
Yes, she
Yay.
is.
Oh, excellent. Perfect. So I have your email, Pauline, so I'll connect Evie with you for your shipping address. Which means we're done our readings, we're done our giveaways, and now it's time for the sexy Q&A. So hit up your questions in chat if you have any, while I quickly write down the winner's names so I don't forget it. Okay. And again, if you didn't win a copy, it's out now. You can buy it as paperback or ebook, just hitting that link right there. Well, Nina says, I have not yet emotionally recovered in order to make coherent questions. Elle says, bravo and brava, everyone who won, and fabulous readings, authors. And Andy says, I wasn't prepared for sexy Q&A. So I will ask the first sexy question, and I will direct it to ST. Sexiest monster.
Oh, come on.
Hey, it's a sexy Q&A. I'm giving our audience a chance to take cold showers.
Yeah, I think the beautiful thing about like eroticism and romance is like you can eroticize and romanticize anything. I'm a big fan of eroticizing and romanticizing, you know, like all of that. So I'm trying to think. I think like I'm really into, and this goes into my story and also other things that I've been kicking around in my head, but I'm really into sexy, scary fae right now. Like specifically
like right here.
Exactly, like old school, sharp teeth, not human, eyes that glint like a cat, like might play mind games with you. Oh, speaking of a cat, hello.
Yay!
Wants to play mind games, is not quite human. I think that level of unpredictability can be really scary and really sexy. So that's what I'm into right now. But also, like, obviously, I have a moral duty to say, let's keep sexy vampires going.
Of course. Other comments, Christine says pinhead or pyramid head for her. Steve Neal wants the werewolf. Nina is all about the sexy Mothman. Oh, let's see there. There we go. Sexy vampire sticker. Sonora, werebears. Can you explain werebears a bit?
So this isn't really a monster, but I have a huge crush on Bjorn in The Hobbit. But in terms of the monsters, like Candace Nola has a book called Bishop about a werebear, and I have told her that I have a crush on the werebear on her cover, and she said that a hot friend of hers was the model. So
nice. Okay, Rae.
Oh, it's always going to be Ursula for me.
Oh, you did put that in chat. There we go. Okay, the tentacles, classic. Jessica.
I'm pretty basic with a vampire, immortal, undead, maybe classy. I don't know. Pretty basic, yeah.
KP.
Oh man, I'm gonna have to go with ST on that. Dark Fae, that was kind of my whole thing. So yeah, definitely.
Okay. Kelsey?
I really agree with werewolves, but I think secondarily I have to go with Frankenstein. It's like build a bitch, right? So you get to
Yeah.
specify what you want.
That's true. And maybe you could swap bits sometimes. You know,
Yeah.
just stitch another one on. You know, Evelyn, Joe, you say I'm leaving you for last. This is my kindness. Evelyn?
I'm gonna go with like Kraken monsters, like tentacle monsters.
I was gonna say
Look
there's
there's also, look at that. Oh, and
there's Booty Mothman.
this is my poetry book for inspiration. It's got a bunch of sexy stickers in it.
Okay, last but not least, Joe.
I mean, I think I'm still looking for my perfect monster, really, but I guess, you know, I'm kind of basic. I like a good vampire. I like Coppola's vampire, you know, Gary Oldman, and how he's like the queer old guy going after Keanu, and then he's also like the young, dashing, fruity guy with the wolf and the cinema, and you know, then he actually turns into a wolf in the graveyard. So, you know, all kinds of variety.
That's
It's kind of
true.
one guy and, you know, all guys in one with him.
Okay, this next one is from Elle. What would be your story's main character's #1 sexy song? So, Rae?
Oh gosh. I just like a death knell. I don't know. I don't think she would like music in particular.
Just like the darkest note on the piano, just like hit over and over and over again.
Or like the screaming of a widow. I don't know.
So specific. Does she have to get a different widow each time, maybe?
Well, she's creating widows constantly,
That's
so
true.
they're not in short supply.
Okay, KP.
This one's tough. Okay, so the first thing that popped in my head was Cage the Elephant, Come a Little Closer, I think. Yeah,
Okay.
probably work.
ST.
So I really like sexy dark rock and roll. That's kind of the primordial ether from which I come. And there's a really good song. I don't know if it's a cover. I don't think it is actually, called It's No Good by In Flames. And it's just like this, I don't know, the lyrics are like, I'm going to make you mine. I'm going to take my time. You can't run. It's just like this kind of mesmerizing, sexy rock song. So I'm going to go with that one.
Perfect. Sonora.
It would be Dangerous Woman by Ariana Grande.
Nice. I like how you're already ready with that.
Well, admittedly, I read Elle's question and started
You were like,
while we were discussing sexy monsters.
Kelsey.
I think it would be Love on the Brain by Rihanna.
Okay. Jessica.
I was going to say Closer by 9 Inch Nails, except I was actually Googling to see if I could find a medieval cover of Closer by 9 Inch Nails, because that's kind of the era.
Did you?
But no, I did find one of a different 9 Inch Nails song. Which one did I find? I forgot which one. No, I could not find that, but that would have been ideal.
Cute. There's a market out there for that. And finally, Joe.
I'm going to say Peter Murphy, Crystal Wrists.
Oh. Now, Evelyn, you didn't have a story. So what would be your sexy song?
Oh, I didn't think I was gonna have to answer this question. I wasn't coming up with anything.
Surprise, got him.
You're putting me on the spot. I'm like opening my Spotify right now. Sorry. It's something by Rihanna, probably. Yeah.
That's fair. That's
what's
fair.
that? Is it better? Yeah.
There, we'll take that. Anything
Rihanna.
by Rihanna. That's
Safe
great.
choice. Yeah.
Okay, we have another question from Nina. What's the least sexiest monster? So we'll go with Evelyn first.
The least sexy monster?
Yes.
Okay. I'm gonna say like vampire, but like the sparkly vampire.
So we're not into the Twilight.
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
Depends on
fair.
which one of them. I mean,
Oh, okay.
all of them sparkle. not to interfere with Evelyn's answer.
Well, Sonora, what's yours then?
The least sexy monster is the Blob.
That's fair.
It's
I
a
mean,
blob.
could the blob make tentacles and then that would make it sexy?
I
Like,
don't
can
think it
push its
can, but
blob bits
also
out?
whenever the blob touches anyone, I mean, they dissolve and die.
That's
I
true.
can't see a way for the blob to be sexy.
No, I think you have a good point there. Jessica?
Well, I mean, there's
Oh.
a lot of lubrication in that blob, so there's
I mean,
that.
unless you're dissolving, then there's nothing to lubricate. You're just gone at that point.
I would read a cosmic horror erotica about the blob. So that is my challenge for you, Joe.
All right. There you go, Joe. Your next story idea. Okay, Jessica, least sexy monster.
Least sexy. I'm gonna go something like a griffin, because it's like two different animal parts together and there's not like a human part or like a humanoid. It's like a lion with a eagle's head.
I think so, yeah.
That's not, no.
All right. That's fair. Okay, not into animals. Good to know, Jessica. Kelsey?
I would have to go with Pennywise. I feel like there's nothing sexy about a clown, though my dating history would beg to differ.
Oh, wow. Interesting. That was a bit of a burn. They're feeling that wherever they are. ST?
So I think the hardest sell for me is probably anything that's like insects. Just because the creepy crawly factor and like the crunchy outer shell. However, there is a spider alien monster romance, Shibari romance by Tiffany Roberts that I heard about on Bonkers Romance. And I feel like if anything could convince me, it's that one. So I should give it a shot. But I do get a little squicked out by the bugs.
Absolutely fair. KP?
I can't think of anything specific, but anything, I guess, with lots of holes, because I have, what is it called?
Tryptophobia.
Yes, I have that thing, and yeah, no, thank you.
I mean, that's fair as well. Although I guess if you were like a giant dick monster, you'd want something with a lot of holes. So I guess it's to each their own, in the end.
Yes, right.
And Rae?
I don't know why I thought of this, but I don't know if anyone remembers that episode of Buffy the Vampire Slayer called Hush, with those very all creepy
The
smiling
silent gentleman. Yeah.
Yeah.
that floated. That's what popped into my head. No, thank you for that.
Okay, no smiling gentleman for you. Also, they really don't want to make you scream. And what does that say about them in bed? Okay. And last, see, Joe, I'm being so nice. Joe?
Zombies, just no thank you.
So not into the dead things. Also a good take. Good take. Okay, I think we're getting to time. So the last question I will ask of everyone here is, what are you working on now and what do you have coming up? So this time I'm not going to be nice, Joe.
Okay. I have one announcement I can't make, but I just got proofs today for, let me see if that'll show, for this little book called The Shipwreck of the Cerberus. And it's going to be just a limited edition little signed thing that I'm self-publishing with help from Ira Rapp for the cover and Joseph Bouthiet Jr. with layout, because I don't know those technical things. Anyway, it's just going to be a little project that I'm going to figure out how much shipping is and then offer it for sale just through me. So that's really exciting, and it should be ready to go in the next couple of weeks or so.
Christine does ask, is it a chapbook?
Yes, it's a novelette. So it's about, 10K.
Perfect. Okay, next, KP Kulski.
I just actually finished writing a book and I submitted that, and I have another project I really can't talk about. It's not a whole lot I can't talk about. And right now I am just started work on a collection, so that's where I'm at.
Perfect. Jessica Peter.
Yeah, I have a Rust Belt Gothic romance coming out in Crimson Bones from Bridget Gate by the end of this month, apparently. I don't know the date, but they said by the end of June. They just said that. And it's a Gothic romance anthology, so may appeal to people on this call as well, although they're all happy endings rather than horror. I mean, there's happy endings in this one too, but maybe in a different way. I'm also querying a historical horror novel that's not very sexy at all. It's cosmic-ish and there's volcanoes in it. And I'm writing a Christmas horror romance novella. It's kind of mashup of haunted houses and those sappy, what do you call them, Hallmark Christmas movies, and but very also scary and romantic at the same time.
Perfect. Next, Rae Knowles.
So my debut novel just came out last month, The Stradivarius, which is very exciting. And I have a novella coming out more in line with our sexy theme. It's coming in November called Merciless Waters. And I pitched it as sapphic folk horror on a pirate ship. And it has some definite erotic moments.
Nice. St. Gibson.
So I have 2 novels coming out in 2024. I'm a very busy bee. In February of 2024, an Education and Malice is coming out from Orbit. Education and Malice is a dark academia reimagining of Carmilla, and it is about toxic mentorship and sapphic desire in a cutthroat poetry cohort in the 1960s at an all-girls school. You can pre-order that now if you are interested in lesbian vampires behaving badly. Again, a very loose reimagining. And then in, I believe, early summer of 2024, I have a series starter coming out called Evocation. And that is the first in a 4-book series that is polyamorous urban fantasy romance. And that is about an alcoholic Boston lawyer and psychic who has to work with his sorcerer ex-boyfriend and the ex-boyfriend's new astrologer wife to break a family curse. And they all fall in love in messy, different ways.
Amazing. Kelsey Christine McConnell.
Yes, I don't currently have any announcements. This is my debut, so this is what I had up in the air. But I'm currently working on a horror novel which adapts the story of the Earl King, the evil king of the fairies, and shifts the focus from him being a figure that guides children to death into one about feminine rage and the manipulation and exploitation that goes into teen sexual abuse.
And congrats on your debut.
Thank you.
And next, Sonora Taylor.
Yeah, so I have a couple things on the horizon. Next month, I'll have my first foreign language release. Seeing Things is going to be released through Dilatando Mente, so is a publisher in Spain. It'll be under the name Visiones, and I'll be sure to post links when the pre-orders are available. I did get to see a copy of the file, and it's really cool how they added illustrations and such to it. So you'll definitely have to check that out. I also have a poem coming up in an anthology called Dark Corners of the Old Dominion, which is all Virginia themed horror and features authors from Virginia. It is coming out from Death Knell Press, and the poem is called The Woods Behind My House, which is based on me growing up near a Civil War battlefield. And then finally, I will have a new book coming out next year called Errant Roots. And it is, I call it a cross between Ready or Not and The Witch. And it's about a woman who meets her mother's side of the family for the very first time after she becomes pregnant. And the whole story, other than just some exposition in the beginning, takes place over this one day at the house.
Awesome. And now, last but not least, our editor, Evelyn Freeling. What do you have? I'm like confusing the lasts of both of your names. Evelyn Freeling. There we go. What do you have coming up? What, anything exciting?
I have some things I can't really announce yet.
You authors and your secrets.
No, top secret. I'm working on like a horror romance novel right now. That's like Tim Burton meets Golden Girls. But yeah, I can't announce my
secrets.
project. Sorry.
Oh, no, that's totally fine. So I did link all the authors and the editors' socials in the chat. So make sure you follow them for all these new releases that all sound fantastic, or to finally find out what secrets they're harboring and they won't tell us now. I also put in the link. So if you didn't want a copy and you don't have a copy yet, you can get the paper book and the ebook. It's available now where you find all your books. And with that, this has been the Les Petite Morts book launch and live reading event. Thank you so much, everyone, all the authors, editor, and all of you beautiful viewers out there for coming and supporting us. It really means a lot. Okay, well,
Thank
thanks.
you.
No.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Bye.
Good night.